really appreciate you giving up your time to talk to us about all things COVID-19 and how, as the Global HR Director for Afterpay, how you're leading or helping to lead the organisation through it. Can I just start by asking, this has impacted all businesses and all organisations across the globe. What's the impact been like for Afterpay and how have you responded?
Yeah, so we had three main considerations when this crisis hit, and they were our people, our customers and our merchants. And pretty quickly we came out and said that people and family before Afterpay, and that people were going to be our number one priority through this whole business. So we very quickly went to how we're going to keep people safe, how we're going to adapt to this new working environment, while still keeping the business running. The other piece for us was around our customers, and we kind of led the market in pretty quickly getting out to our customers and reminding them of our hardship policy and encouraging them to call us. And we did get a spike in those calls originally, and now it's really flattened off. But we're very much, our model is built around caring for our customers and supporting them through this time. And then the third element was our merchants. So our merchants who are retailers, even though we are predominantly online, we do offer Afterpay a lot through in-store. A lot of our merchants do have really large in-store presence. All of a sudden they're having to close and go through quite a bit. So we really focus a lot on partnering with them through this time, looked at how we can support them going into more online, introduce marketing campaigns to keep them connected with online customer base. So that's been really pivotal for us. They've been our three main strategies.
So Shanyn, what were some of the things you did early on to manage through this ordeal?
We made sure that we listened to our people. So we actually used CultureAmp as our engagement tool. They actually brought out a crisis response survey, which we sent out to our employees about 3 weeks in, just to gauge their response to how we had responded to the crisis. The great thing was that we got overwhelmingly positive response to how we had dealt with the situation, but they also gave us some really good ideas of how we could further tweak our response plan to make sure that everyone felt well looked after.
And what's been the biggest challenge?
Wow, I think I'm remembering the first 24 hours after we decided to move everyone to remote working and having to Uber out 70 laptops to all of our customer service employees because we couldn't get enough couriers to get the laptops out to them. So anyone with a company Uber account was there, trying to get the Ubers out to people to get our customer service team up and running remotely as quickly as possible. And we did that like it was a monumental team effort between, our IT infrastructure, our operations team and HR. So that was a huge challenge. Apart from that, we've been relatively lucky because we are a tech organisation that was pretty well set up with some good flexible work practices that we were able to transition to remote working relatively easily compared to others.
Well done. And what about as an HR leader? This is a new business. It's a new role for you in many ways. Where have you been really stretched?
I think for me, I am a massive extrovert, and I think one of my strengths is really connecting with people. And I have, I tried to replicate that through video early on by touching base with as many people across the organisation as possible. But then being on Zoom calls between 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. does not become feasible. So I think it's really having to find different ways of doing things and remain connected to our people. So, we've done that in various ways. Again, lucky we've got some great tech that's already been set up, but Google Docs and that asynchronous form of communication has become my best friend. And that was something I'd never used before. So using that technology has really stretched me and still trying to stay in touch with our people as much as possible.
And what about your fellow executives and your peers? Where have you found that they've needed support and how have they lent on you mostly?
Yeah, really similarly, actually. I think so many of them, we're being extra conscious to touch in with the teams as often as possible, and we're just finding themselves on Zoom calls throughout the day. So they've lent on me for alternative forms of communication and how they can be visible without actually having to be physically live with people. So we've done a lot of like little short video snips, etc., to make sure they get out as much as possible. And also I think performance management, that continues throughout this environment. So having to learn on how to do that remotely. And definitely, I think how people are coping with the remote working. So definitely our parents out there are one group that is really struggling with how to balance everything. So it's helping execs work with them and their teams about how can you reshift and realign priorities to make sure that those people are supported in this time and how you can redistribute work.
What about your own team, Shanyn? How have you kept them motivated during this?
Yeah, so we have regular touch points, and I think at the really basic level, it is just being really clear what those new priorities and new expectations are. So we were able to still deliver on everything we had intended to do for FY20. We did have to redistribute the work, and we really had to also be really clear about the different ways people are going to have to work to do that. So we've got a number of different things to do throughout the week. We have a Where Are We Slack channel. So at any point, I've got my HR manager has 5-year-old twins. So she needs to go and take them out to the park for a couple of hours because, they're going a bit crazy. We know where she is. And then if she sends an email, at 10 o'clock at night, knowing that other people don't feel the need to respond, that's when she's choosing to work. Then we have 4 o'clock, 1 o'clock on a Friday with the team, and every Friday's been a different dress up theme to make sure we still stay really connected as a team and still have those fun times. And we ban talking about work for that little 1 o'clock session to make sure we still feel connected. So yeah, it's been really challenging but fun.
And you mentioned at the beginning, Shanyn, that people have been front and centre as part of the Afterpay strategy for this. Tell us a little bit about what you've done as a business to look after your people during this.
Yeah, we made a really key call early on, which was that we would preserve jobs at all costs. We really felt the number one thing we could do for people's mental health was to give them that sense of security. So we obviously did our contingency planning, as any good business would do during this phase, but we're really clear with our people that that would be our absolute last resort. So that's really helped. We very quickly moved to communicating with our employees often. So not just through managers. We have had global all hands. We've had people from, so we've got Melbourne, Sydney, Auckland, Manchester, London, San Francisco and New York. And we've been running those sessions every fortnight to give people really transparent information around the business and how that's tracking, but also the initiatives they're doing for our employees. We use Workplace as a tool. We've got a special wellbeing page set up, and we're running daily yoga sessions, meditation sessions, mindfulness. We ran a work from home with kids session a couple of days ago where we got someone in to really give some practical tips and tricks around how to manage work and children. So we're really trying to make sure and remind people all the time that it is family first, Afterpay second.
That's amazing. Well done. What's still keeping you awake at night?
Despite everything we've done, you always feel like you're not doing enough because you do see people feeling the pressure. And as much as you say, be realistic about what you can achieve. We have really high-performing, highly conscientious people in our business, which is amazing, but they want to keep delivering to that standard. And I do worry that we're going to have some very tired people at the end of this. And so we're constantly thinking about what more can we do to support people. And I think everyone's really different. I know I've mentioned parents quite a few times, but obviously we've got people who live on their own, who are feeling quite isolated at this point in time. We've got people who are living in share houses with roommates that, are not necessarily being as nice as they could be. So that still concerns me, and I'm looking forward to us being allowed back into the office, to be honest.
Are you at a stage where you're starting to plan that now, Shannon, that return to the workplace, and what does that look like?
Yeah, we are. So we've got together a working group in each region, because Australia is looking very different to our other locations of how that might work. So for our Australian business, we're planning that as soon as there is a trigger point, the government saying that we can go back, or schools going back for us is our big trigger. Our people know that it will be 1 week before we then start opening the office. So we're being really clear with the lead time that we need to be able to prepare things. We're thinking through capacity. So we're planning to only have 25% capacity initially. And again, getting managers to think through what that looks like for their teams and how that would work. We're looking at even like closing down our communal kitchen area to make sure that we've got capacity, meeting capacity standards for that, not using communal dishes, bringing in disposable stuff, a more cleaning regime, hand sanitizer stations, all those sorts of things. So we're lucky we've got a wonderful facilities manager who's really thought that through. And we're also going to be sending out a survey to our employees this week to ask them what will make them feel more comfortable returning to work, because we want to make sure we're really understanding what our employees' concerns would be, so then we can hopefully plan to mitigate those concerns.
And what do you think's been some of the upside of this ordeal? Some positives coming out of it.
There's been a lot. I had someone from our product team mention that they have never collaborated better with the other regions before. So it's almost been this forced collaboration, and because we have to do it via Zoom anyway, it doesn't matter if that person's in the US or the UK. So there's definitely been an increase in collaboration in those key teams, and we're already exploring on how we can make sure that continues when we go back. And I definitely have got to know my co-workers' families and pets way better. Everyone in the company knows about my Frenchies now and has seen them on videos multiple times. When people's kids wander into the Zoom call, you get to meet them. We have one of our finance leaders, her husband thinks it's hilarious every time we have a meeting to, walk in the background in a different costume each time. So I've got to know him quite well. And that just never would have happened if we were in the office. So it's been really good.
It's kind of stripped down the formality, hasn't it?
Certainly has. So many people comment they feel like they know their teammates better. And I would have said that my HR team were really close and knew each other really well, but even that's gone to a whole new level throughout this.
Yeah, it's fabulous. Definitely a positive. What about flexibility? Can you envisage that will look different when you go back to the workplace?
I think the biggest winners out of this situation are people's pets and also flexible work. There is now no excuse to say that flexible work and working from home doesn't work. It's certainly the number one question we're getting at our global all hands events is, can we continue to work from home after this is over? So we've always had an ad hoc policy, but nothing really formal around that. So we're in the process of drafting some more principles and guidelines. I think it's important to remember that flexibility is different for every person, it's different for every business, and it's different on how that impacts the customer. So we're actually looking at being flexible policy. But I think, across Australia, we will see a hell of a lot more working from home on a permanent basis after this.
And what about the HR profession, Shannon? Do you think there's any skills or any strengths that are going to be more paramount coming out of this than before?
Yeah, I think communication has been key. So, and that reliance that some of us still have on that face-to-face communication. I think, the face-to-face is one-to-one or one-to-a few. I think a really key skill set is learning it on how to be visible and communicate to many in that asynchronous form. So again, being in a global business, that really helps us to make sure that we're communicating with all of our regions at the same time. So certainly that's the big skill that I've picked up during this process, is just learning the finer art of employee communication.
Really good point. I think it's often assumed, isn't it, whereas this is really
Yeah, it's really well planned and tactical. Again, we've got a fabulous comms team here as well that we've been able to leverage off, and certainly my team have learned a lot from them in the past month.
What about the benefit of hindsight? What do you wish you knew 6 months ago that would have helped to manage through this?
I actually don't think that there's anything, because the word unprecedented has been used so many times, but I almost wouldn't want to know, because you'd probably try to overplan it. And I think the key to managing through this crisis is to be agile and flexible and know that things change day to day. In those early stages, things were changing every 24 hours. So I'm actually glad that we didn't know, so we were able to just do things on the fly and be a bit more flexible.
What about you? What are you going to do? What's the first thing you'll do when the lockdowns are eased?
There's two things, and they're going to sound contradictory. Number one is get back to the boxing gym. I really miss the boxing gym, and I also want to get my nails done.
You're the only one.
I know. I don't show my nails on Zoom at the moment. So,
Shanyn, is there anything else that you wanted to mention that you think might be of interest?
I think the importance of connecting people through this time, and making sure that we're looking after people's mental health and well-being. I think we need to carry that with us back into the office, to be really mindful that and that everyone's situation is really different. So having really solid employee assistance programs, mental health and wellbeing programs, and managers who are trained in mental health first aid, I think is really important coming out of this. This will drag on for a little bit longer, even once things are back to semi-normal.
Very sound advice, I agree. Thank you so much, Shanyn, for giving up your time and talking to us today and talking to the broader HR community. Very much appreciate it. Thank you.
No worries. Thanks.